Hello again, everybody. Today we're focusing on omelets. So we're going to continue with our eggs and we're going to move into omelets today. So there's two types of omelet that we're going to focus on. All right, you have the American omelet and you have the French omelet. Now, what are the differences? And there are big differences. So the American omelet is the diner omelet. It's what you see when you go to the Bel Air diner. You look on the menu, you're going to see a dozen different types, and you can customize your own, right? All different things. The French omelet is very different, okay? Still made of eggs, similar concept, but with some really, really big differences, which we're going to demonstrate as we go on, all right? So I'm going to start off with the American omelet. So look over here. We have our eggs. I'm going to do a 2-egg omelet. I have my bowl for whisking. I have my bowl for my shells. All right, again, when you're cracking your egg, really want to be careful. You can crack on the side of the bowl. Some people don't like to do that because of the fact that if you do get a little bit of breakage with the shell, you're going to get shell inside of your eggs. So some people will actually crack on their garbage bowl or on a tabletop even. One quick hit so you don't get the shell splitting into a lot of pieces. Gonna give it a quick look, make sure we have no shell. We don't. If we did, again, use a piece of the shell to scoop out any pieces. And actually there is one little piece right there that I just found. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna remove that. Just gonna go ahead and scrape that out of there. Okay, I'm gonna wash my hands real quick. 20 seconds on the hand wash. That's a shout out for Jennifer for calling me out on not washing my hands long enough in the scrambled egg and fried egg video. While I'm washing my hands, I want to give a little shout out as well to my daughter who is filming this for us. Best tripod in the business. All right, so we're gonna come on over. I'm gonna add just a couple of cracks of fresh, I like white pepper myself, that's a preference. A little bit of salt. Yeah, a little more. I'm gonna turn my pan on. I've got my non-stick pan. Very, very important to use a non-stick pan when you're doing an omelet. You don't have to use a non-stick pan, it's easier. All right, it is easier to use your non-stick. So I've got that on a low flame, just starting to heat. And now I'm going to come over and we're going to start to break up the yolks and we're going to whisk those eggs together, right? So I'm using the fork, the back of the fork. Again, we're not just mixing, we're turning over to really incorporate, okay? What we're doing is we're putting air into this mixture, which is going to help to make them a little bit more fluffy. Get them really nice and incorporated. I want to make sure that they're all broken up. Really important, and I'll show you when we do the French omelet why this is even more important during the French omelet. Okay, so that's good. Just checking, you'll see there's not any big long strands of the egg white falling. That's a good sign. So I'm going to come back over. Medium high. So on an American omelet, a little bit of heat is okay. Right, you want your pan to have some heat to it. I'm going to use 2 different fats. Or I'm going to use some cooking spray to coat the pan, which just make sure that it doesn't stick. And I'm going to use a little bit of butter as well. The butter is going to add flavor, as well as also helping to make sure that it doesn't stick. The other thing with the American omelet is the butter is going to help to add color. And that's an important aspect of the American omelet, is the color. You're looking for a golden brown color on your American omelet. So just give it a little spray. Always spray off the heat. Never want to spray on the fire because it can be flammable. Gonna add my butter to the pan. Listen for that sizzle. Now with the American omelet, it's okay to let that butter go a little bit longer and let it actually start to get just a little bit of color, start to brown a little bit. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add my eggs to the pan. that start to cook. I'm just going to scrape down the sides, move it around just a little bit. Now, one of the things that we're looking for here is we want to keep that shape. Make sure it's not too much sticking. And you can swirl the pan around a little bit, which will help to fill in any broken spots. Now, I'm going to use a little bit of American cheese for this omelet, or rather, sorry, some cheddar cheese, which I have already portioned out and ready to go. And we're just going to let that cook just a little more. Again, I'm looking for some color on that egg. You can see it's still a little runny on the top, which is okay because we're going to fold this over itself. And it will continue to cook once we fold it over. All right, so now with the American omelet, what we're looking to do is just going to give it a fold. So I'm going to go ahead at this point, and I'm going to add my cheese. And then I'm going to take and I'm going to fold. And now at this point, I could also add a little bit more butter. And kind of get that butter underneath there. It's going to give a little more shine. And also help to just add a little bit more color. Turn that heat off. Come over and grab my plate. All right, now we're going to bring... Want to soak up that last little bit of butter. I'm going to go ahead and there we have a really nice golden brown American omelet. Again, this one, always want to give a little wipe down on your plate. Right, so this one here, we're looking at just with some cheese, right? We could add a lot of other things to this, right? You could add meats to this. When you go to the diner, you look on the menu, you're going to see all different kinds of varieties from the Western omelet, right? Which will have onions and peppers and diced ham. A lot of people like mushrooms. I personally, if I get a diner omelet, I am always going with mozzarella cheese, spinach, and bacon. That's my preference, okay? So lots of different things you can do here, but the big thing here is we're looking at that beautiful golden brown color and that shape, right? That folded over shape, okay? So we'll come back in a moment and we'll show you the French omelet. All right, so now it's time for the French omelet. Oui, chef. Okay, so the French omelet, a little bit different than the American omelet. Well, a lot different than the American omelet. So while the American omelet had a crispy golden brown top, the French omelet is going to be very soft. It's going to have a very, the best way to describe is this really beautiful yellow color, very soft looking. The cooking is a little bit different, and the eggs are going to be slightly creamier in that they're going to be stirred a little more often right in the beginning, and we'll talk about that in a second. So, mise en place is ready to go. Have our eggs, our salt, our pepper, our butter, and our cooking spray for the pan. Non-stick pan ready to go. Rubber spatula. You will see videos online that will tell you that you should use a fork when you're doing this, when you're stirring. Use the back end of your fork. I don't like to do that with a non-stick pan because unless you're very, very careful, you run the risk of scratching your non-stick pan. And if you scratch the non-stick coating out of the pan, it's basically useless, okay? So we don't want it. I like to use the rubber spatula myself. All right, so same as we did with the American, we're going to go ahead and crack our eggs. All right, check for shell. There's nothing worse than biting into a nice, beautiful, soft omelet and then having the crunch of egg, or eggshell rather, once you bite in. That's not a very pleasant mouthfeel to have, and it can take the experience of having that really beautiful omelet from something that's really, really nice to something that is going to be less appealing. So we want to make sure that we're very careful about that. All right, a little bit of salt. Again, just a pinch. Doesn't need to be a lot, but we want to wake up the flavors. All right, so now for this particular omelet, we're not going to use a filling for this. All right, we're going to really look more for technique. But if you were talking filling, you could do cheese, you could do fine herbs, all right, which would be things like fresh parsley, chives, chervil, which would go into that and really give a really fresh kind of taste and flavor. All right, so same. I'm going to come in, really incorporate. We really want to try and get this as fluffy as we possibly can. Now in the French omelet, very important to make sure that the white and the yolk are really, really well incorporated. If it's not, you will see streaks of white in the beautiful yellow color, which will take away from the overall look. So really want to make sure, and again, you can test by lifting. If you see any pieces of white that are kind of hanging on, just go back in and give it another few seconds. But really, really important to make sure it's well incorporated. All right, so at this point, this looks good. All right, so now I'm going to turn my stove on. This time we're going to go with the flame a little bit lower. Still want to get that pan hot, but we don't want it as hot because, again, what we don't want here is we don't want color, right? We want to get the egg set up, but we don't want to go too hard and we don't want to color it. All right, now the other way that we're going to achieve that is by mixing. All right, so if you remember with the American omelet, we poured the egg in and we let the egg sit and we let the egg just kind of cook and we stirred it a little bit, but not a whole lot. With the French omelet, we're going to stir right from the beginning. And the other thing we're going to do is we're not only going to stir, but we're going to shake the pan while we're stirring. And that is going to help to keep the egg from sticking to the pan, but it's really going to keep it moving so that it's not really coloring, okay? That's also going to break up the egg into smaller curds as well. So a little coat with our non-stick spray. Now we're going to go ahead and add some butter. Butter will also add a little bit of creaminess, right? Because we are adding that fat. All right, we listen for that sizzle. Now here, I don't want to go any longer than when I stop hearing that sizzle. When that water is all cooked out, that's the exact moment I want to go ahead and add those eggs to my pan. All right, I hear it quieting down. Eggs are going to go in. Give it a quick scrape. We pay for all the eggs, so we want to use all of it. And now we're mixing and scraping at the same time. A quick scrape on those sides as well. This is one of those techniques that really you have to practice it, right? You have to keep working it. And you kind of, again, you can kind of turn the pan a little bit. Break it up, you'll fill in those spots. Now the big difference here, or one of the big differences that you're going to see, is you're going to see that again, we don't want too much, but now you see I'm off the flame, right? I still have residual heat in my pan right now, which is going to continue to give some heat and cook. And you notice that inside is still a little bit on the runny side. But really, that's about as far as I'm going to go with this. All right, one of the characteristics of a French omelet is that it is a little bit runny on the inside. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give one fold. Broke a little bit. right? So one fold, and I'm going to slide down to the bottom of my pan. I'm going to bring my plate over, and we're going to grab from the handle this way. We're going to slide it down to the end. Give it a little tap. And now as it comes out, we're going to give it a little flip. All right, and now the next thing, I'm just going to take a pair of forks, and we're just going to come in and make sure that we have the shape that we want. All right, so you see a little bit of a bump, which I don't love too much, got to be honest. All right, but you see the difference in color. So now, let's do a little side by side. And you see the difference, right? So we see differences in the color. We see differences in the shape, okay? I would finish this with a little bit of fresh parsley over the top, or a little bit of chive over the top is going to add a beautiful look to it. Now, one of the big things is, I'm going to go ahead and grab a knife here. And I'm going to cut into this. All right, so when you look at this, you're going to see there still is a little bit of runniness in there, right? That is one of the characteristics of the French omelet. Okay, you do want it to be a little runny. I know some people get a little weirded out by that and think, well, if it's undercooked, is it dangerous? It's not that it's undercooked. It is still warm. And the longer it sits and the longer it sits folded, the longer that's going to continue to cook. Now, again, could I add things to this? Absolutely. I could have added a little bit of cheese right before I folded. You can add lots of things. You could add things like goat cheese and the herbs and things, which, again, goat cheese is nice because it's soft, so it adds to the creaminess of the dish, right? So that's something you could do. We'll just cut into this one as well. All right, so here we see we've got that nice melted cheese, but the egg is cooked all the way through, right? You got that crispy outer top, not crispy like, you know, biting a piece of crisp bread, but still a little bit crispier compared. And you can even, it almost looks like you can see the difference in the two. So you see the shape, you see the color, okay? These are the big differences between the two. So both omelets, both made with your eggs, but very, very different. In terms of what you'd serve each with, the American omelet, you're looking at like a traditional breakfast, right? You're looking at breakfast potatoes and breakfast meats and things like that. With the French omelet, so in Europe, breakfast isn't really a big deal, right? So you wouldn't really see an omelet served at breakfast as much as you would see it served at lunch, or even sometimes with a nice dinner. And you'd see that French omelet served with like a side salad, something with a really nice vinaigrette. But it's a little bit different. Different types of meals for sure. But different things to do with your eggs. I challenge you or encourage you. We got people coming in from outside right now. We encourage you to try, right? Take these ideas, take these techniques, try them out, and see what you come up with. And then when you do, I encourage you to post them and let us see what you're doing, right? Make some breakfast for your family. Make a nice Sunday brunch, whatever you want to do. But I'm encouraging you to get out there and try. Get out there and do. Cook, 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 and have fun with it. All right? All right. See you next time.